Wong, try not to slip. We don't have liability insurance.
Remember when the biggest change that we expected a movie to make to the MCU was a cheeky post-credit scene that suggested it's all happening in the same world? There's a lot of reasons for a trailer to lie, and not all of them are nefarious. The movie is not in picture lock yet. Editorial decisions are still being made. Then there's the fandom-driven franchises that have people scrutinizing every single frame of promotional material like kids shaking boxes under the Christmas tree hoping to unlock the movie's big secret.
As a matter of fact, we don't ask questions like that around here.
Here's how that went all Mephisto in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Phase 4 up to this point seemed to be a cavalcade of characters putting a lot on Doctor Strange's plate. Wanda went and altered the reality of an entire town. Then, another version of Loki went and stabbed the only version of Kang with any interest in keeping the multiverse Kangless. Then, Spider-Man wanted to put his secret identity genie back in the bottle and asked Doctor Strange to magic up a solution. Doctor Strange just got straight to it, which resulted in the Spider-Man's entire rogues gallery appearing in the sky over New York. You know, MCU New York puts up with a lot.
I'd rather not talk about this.
It seemed like all of this was building towards a finale in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where all the multiversal shenanigans would finally come home to roost on the shoulders of that master of the mystical arts, Doctor Strange. The advertising seemed to enforce exactly that. Mordo's lines about the desecration of the multiverse seemed to relate directly to his actions trying to protect Spider-Man's secret identity. As it turns out, the only legacy from WandaVision was that Wanda had not, in fact, processed her grief in a healthy manner, and the only connection to the Loki series was the existence of incursions, the very thing that the TVA was supposedly set up to prevent. The only thing that people did get right about the Multiverse of Madness was that Wanda wasn't exactly going to be on the side of the angels. While we like to think that we learned our lessons with WandaVision and all things Mephisto, there was still the idea that there was going to be a puppet master behind the scenes making things happen. One of the rumors was that Doctor Strange would face his first foe, the Fear Lord Nightmare. After all, the movie was meant to be a horror movie. Naturally, Nightmare feeds off of people's fear. What's scarier than an emotionally unhinged witch who happens to be the strongest magic user in the multiverse? The trailers even at one point lined up lines from Doctor Strange and Wanda that happen at different times to underline that Wanda was facing a nightmare. Rumors of Shumagorath being the big bad were bolstered by the tentacled eye monster showing up in a few episodes of What If, and then in full display in the trailers. But when the tentacles hit the road, the interdimensional demon of almost omnipotent power, including the ability to control people across dimensions, turned out to be just the level 1 boss being hexed by the conduit of chaos power, Wanda Maximoff. The biggest tease in the trailers was a familiar voice suggesting that the mysterious assembly tell Doctor Strange the truth. Fox's Professor X, Patrick Stewart, would be returning to the wheelchair as the father figure of the mutants in the same way that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire returned to their Spider-Man roles. With Professor X and the Ultron drones underlined by Mordo specifically stating that Strange would answer for his crimes against the multiverse, it seemed to suggest that this Illuminati was actually a multi-dimensional superband of the best versions of the best heroes in the multiverse who were brought together to fill in the He Who Remains sized hole in the multiverse. In the comics, the Illuminati were brought together to make sure all of Earth's various defenders were on the same page when it came to global threats. It's also worth noting that their track record was abysmal, generally making things worse. Remember when the animated What If series was a playful romp where characters' origin stories were flipped around, or, at its darkest, just how devastating it would be if Ant-Man broke bad? Then episode 4 came and gave us sadness and convinced us all to delete our ex's numbers from our phones so that we don't let grief, regret, and second guessing make us a prisoner in a prison of our own sadness. Oh, that episode also gave us Strange Supreme, a look at what happens if you take the bumper rails of Doctor Strange and he just starts collecting power across the multiverse. It was easy to understand why people thought that Strange Supreme was on his way to the Multiverse of Madness and he was bringing some friends. Then Peggy threw her mighty shield in a late trailer. It seemed clear that What If was a prelude to Multiverse of Madness. However, the What If series actually had a satisfying conclusion, including a Captain Carter that got to go home, and a Strange Supreme who redeemed himself by helping to stop an infinity-powered Ultron. How would they reconcile that? Well, it turns out by not being those specific characters after all, but in an infinite multiverse, just similar versions of the same characters. Ever since Disney won the Hungry Hippo Entertainment conglomerates by acquiring Fox, and with it, The Mutants and Fantastic Four, every new project has been scrutinized as potential for answering the question everyone has. How will the mutants enter the MCU? Alas, no Wolverine was in the end credits scene of Endgame. Wanda did not pull her mutant brother from another reality to join her in Westview. Loki's time-skipping adventures did not include a visit by the X-Men. Surely, Wanda shouldering through the multiverse was going to be how mutants show up in the MCU. After all, Professor X is right there. Turns out, when Feige said that Phase 4 was planned out before the acquisition and that mutants would be a while off, he meant it, because the answer of how the mutants will enter the MCU remains unanswered. All the way back in December of last year, rumors started flying concerning Doctor Strange and the inevitable reshoots that are part of the Marvel movie-making process. One of the most persistent stories of the reshoots was that they were centered on cameos. Supposedly, they were enamored by the success of No Way Home and Loki, and decided to have some fun adding whole new cameos and alternative versions of characters. While we did get the surprise reveal of the internet's fondest wish when it came to casting Mr. Fantastic, and the surprise return of Anson Mount's Black Bolt, when even diehard fans tend to pretend the Inhumans never happened, it was hardly the big payoff that those reshoots suggested. And that paled in comparison to what fans thought would happen, including an appearance from Tom Cruise in the role of Iron Man, from a production of Iron Man that never happened. While fans might have crafted that one out of whole cloth, Deadpool really did make the rounds at Marvel as a potential cameo, but it was ultimately decided that Deadpool really didn't fit the tone. Part of the promise of a cavalcade of cameos was that Doctor Strange would be visiting quite a few different realities in the multiverse. The last 2 episodes of Loki certainly demonstrated the fun that can be had by spinning the multiverse dial with Gator Loki, Candidate Loki, Classic Loki, and Kid Loki. With Doctor Strange teaming up with America Chavez, whose main power is punching star-shaped holes in the multiverse, it seemed natural that this would be a romp through the various alternate realities. Instead, it turned out to be more of a speed run, where it seemed to pass through an animated universe similar to Sony's Miles Morales-led Spider-Verse multiversal movies, one where they were paint, then landing in Earth 838 where most of the action took place. The only other substantial part of the multiverse visited was one where Doctor Strange lost an incursion. When Strange dusts out after Infinity War, Wong ends up as Sorcerer Supreme. Over on Earth 838, a forcibly retired Doctor Strange is replaced by Mordo without so much as a mention of Wong. Incursionverse, also no Wong. Back in the main MCU reality, Wong and the Sorcerers managed to hold their own against a full-rage Scarlet Witch. While we did get a glimpse of how important Wong is, we did not get any more of a clue as to what he's doing staging cage fights for money with the Abomination. Wong just continues to keep his secrets. Multiverse of Madness is not the only project that people are assuming would change the MCU forever. Thor, Love and Thunder just might be an MCU pantheon all-skate as Thor encounters Gore the God Butcher, who will naturally need gods to butcher. Over in Wakanda, Tenoch is set to appear, and the going assumption is that it will be as Namor the Submariner, after Kang made an early surprise appearance in Loki ahead of being the big bad in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. it seemed like a natural fit that we'd see an early appearance of Namor in Multiverse of Madness, especially since the Illuminati were said to appear. Namor is a member of the original group where he does his regular thing. Namor and Tony Stark instead were the missing members. Doctor Strange has never really been a character known for his, empathy. In the first Doctor Strange movie, he had to learn humility before he would be given the power of the mystical arts and become what the Ancient Ones said was one of the best of us. Doctor Strange instead is known for acting unilaterally, which just so happens to be exactly the same thing Thanos believed. With the themes of the cost of Strange's actions, it seemed like the slicked down looking Strange, dubbed Defender Strange, was going to be the good guy example to bring out Strange back in line. Turns out he was more of a Donnie Don't, as in, don't do what Donnie Don't does.
They could have made this clearer.
The biggest lie, of course, would be that this wasn't even the MCU's Doctor Strange, but the Doctor Strange from the universe about to have an incursion with the MCU's reality. That would explain the Eye of Agamotto, and how Mordo has been trying to kill Strange.
100%. I could tell.